Hello there, and welcome to episode 20, which is our Christmas edition of Nothing Else Mattress music podcast that's setting out to try and establish what we think are the 100 greatest albums ever made. To do that, we've been reviewing the Rolling Stones' latest list of 100 albums and voting them in and out. We've reviewed 95 so far out of the 100, and we voted 64 in, which is 67%. So that tells you that we've only got 5 left to do. Woohoo. So cool we've got guys to do tonight, a full house. So I just get around the room. So first of all, we have Lisa. Good evening. How are we doing?
Hello, very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm very festive. We have Mr. Welsh. John, good evening.
Humbug.
Humbug. And to you, we also have George back on tonight. Mr. Patterson, good evening.
Ho, 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 motherfuckers.
And thank goodness we have a guest as well. So we've actually been trying to get our guest on for most of 2023, which is all down to her, not us, of course. And so our guest for the last episode was brilliant, and it's Julie Rea, the writer, author, playwright, lover of Bill Hicks, cakes, and Nirvana, as it turns out.
Sorry, John. Cheers.
So Julie, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. And I think you know that we voted off Nirvana in the last episode now, so sorry about that. I know. Take a moment. So a very quick housekeeping from the last episode. So myself, Lisa and John were on it, and we had Ian Smith on it from last night from Glasgow.
A bit.
And we lost Ian about 2/3 of the way through the podcast. Now, he said he had a major broadband outage. But we ran a very quick Twitter poll asking whether he'd faked his own death or not. And 73% said that he had, including Julia Smith, I might add. So I'm not sure we should give him his other vote, but we do give a guest nomination of a vote. And he gave us his one-liner for his nomination, which was Wilco with Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Which he said is simply the best record recorded in my lifetime, a sonic masterclass and a perfect study on how to compile an album. Exceptional, beautiful, beguiling.
Absolutely one of my favourites.
So that'll go on the list, and we'll add that to the others that we've done. Cool. Alrighty. So we are on to our 5 for tonight. We're in the top 5, so hopefully they'll be half decent. The first one we have at number 5 on the list is Abbey Road from the Beatles. So I'll just read a very quick summary, as we do, from what the Rolling Stones said to justify, and then Julie will take us away. Okay, quote, "It was a very happy record," said producer George Martin, describing this album in the Beatles anthology. "I guess it was happy because everybody thought it was going to be the last. Indeed, Abbey Road, recorded in 2 months during the summer of 1969, almost never got made at all. Yet, determined to go out with the same glory with which they first entranced the world at the start of the decade, the group reconvened at EMI's Abbey Road studios to make their most polished album, and Lennon, McCartney and Harrison reputedly sang more 3-part harmonies here than on any other Beatles album. That warm feeling, a sense of an increasingly divided band warmly coming together as friends, may be one reason Abbey Road has become the most beloved Beatles album of all time." So that was Rolling Stone, released 26 September 1969, 11 studio album, and we've had 4 others on the list already, and all 4 have been voted on. So no pressure, Julie. All yours. Tell us about Abbey Road.
Abbey Road, although I think my favourite Beatles album is either Revolver or the White Album, the one I found that I returned to a lot as an adult is Abbey Road.
Okay.
And it's very easy to not Octopus's Garden, and there's, it's kind of upbeat, and there's a lot of stuff that people latch on to. I just think it was a perfect album, and then in hindsight you realise it's their last album. I think it was a perfect finish. It ends with the end. Perfect. I just feel it showed a band, although nearing the end, still totally in their prime. The songwriting capabilities, the creativity, that is like stuff that even now bands would kill for. It still sounds fresh 40 odd years later. It's iconic imagery. It just felt like a whole band from when they started to then where they ended. The progression was amazing, and I cannot help but feel that run of you know, the last few songs, she came in through the bathroom window, you know, Golden Slumbers Carry That Weight. That's just explosive. It's sublime. It just feels like that second side. I do have a thing about second sides of albums, and I think that's one of the most perfect ones. And Here Comes the Sun, it's personal to me. That was what I chose to play when I gave birth to my second daughter. So yeah,
Wow.
it's a very special album to me. Yeah.
Wow.
As I've got older.
Fantastic. And you said it's probably not your favourite Beatles album, but one you go back to the most?
Yeah, I love Revolver, but sometimes, and I love the White Album, but I have to be in the right mood for the White Album. It can be a hard listen, but it's the one when I was younger, I was like, oh my God, it blew my mind. I loved it. But and like that, I kind of poo-pooed Abbey Road because it was so upbeat. It was kind of like, and it's only now you go back, there's tons of layers. The songwriting's fantastic. Yeah, I have to be in the right mood. I have to tell you you know, She's So Heavy, I Want You. Yeah, I've got to be in the right mood for certain ones, but it's the one when, you know, I'm kind of doddering about or in the car, I'll put it on and I just think it still stands up. I think it is absolutely fantastic, and it is deservedly. If this is not in, and it is the Beatles, and it's the Beatles' last album, I will eat your Santa hat. I mean, sincerely, it's just absolutely classic, and it's very easy to slag the Beatles because they're like a comfy pair of slippers. They're always there. They're always consistently good. And it's very easy to slag them. But this album, I'm sorry, this still stands up. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I love it.
Here. We don't slag them really. We're all big fans of them.
John, go.
But we've had some moments with them for sure. I think partly because they have had 5 albums on the list. I think that's the most any one artist has had. So but we have managed to vote them all on, which is great. Cool. So it was the last album. By the time they finished recording the album, Lennon had left the band, although he officially hadn't left it. And then you know, McCartney left later on and all that stuff. But it kind of was the end, really. And you're right, it probably doesn't come through in the music. It sounds fantastic. So we'll come back to a couple of other things. Lovely. Thanks for that, Jill. It's a great way to start.
I don't think you have to eat Brian's hat. I think you'll be okay.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It's my Willy Wonka hat. John, follow that.
Yeah, well, I disagree. It is not a perfect album. It is a flawed album, I think.
Which makes it perfect.
Like a rough diamond.
Well, yeah,
yes.
and perhaps that's the beauty of it. I don't think it's the best album. I think there's you know, Julie saying side 2 and all that sort of stuff. I actually prefer side 1. And you know, that again, that's the beauty of your personal choice and what you're into. I think tracks like Oh Darling are just that sort of gruff vocal, almost a bluesy number at times, really, really good. I think Harrison's 2 songs are fantastic. You know, talk about something, and obviously Here Comes the Sun is probably one of the best songs of all time, really, and it probably deserves to be on just for that one song, almost. The medley piece, I think, is flawed. I get why people like it, but you know, almost take bits of songs and turn it into something. You know, I'm not sure it works to the point that people say. But I think, you know, overall, pretty good album. The last album they recorded, not the last album they released. And I love Lennon's quotes about some of Paul McCartney's songs, you know, music for grannies. It's not real music.
Yeah, but he always said that, didn't he?
Well, yeah, he may well have done, but
yeah, just jealous, I think.
Well, yeah, and I think some of those songs.
So who's going to mention Maxwell's Silver Hammer first then?
Oh, yeah, the Beatles.
Yeah, you want to mention Maxwell's Silver Hammer, John? Because
yes,
everyone else does.
That's the one, yeah. So, and then you've got the iconic album cover.
Yeah.
Question for you: how many Beatles are on the cover?
5.
Damn, you're good.
And because John,
the 4 Beatles plus the Beatles car, the Beatle car.
Well done.
The wee VW bug.
Well
And
done.
what was the number plate?
Oh, George.
George.
He
Somewhat-
just elevates it. He just takes it to the
I
next level.
know.
yeah.
28 IF, which would have been Paul McCartney's age had he lived. All
Absolutely.
your conspiracy
Yeah,
theory.
had he lived.
Had he
Yeah.
lived.
Had he
Yeah.
lived. Absolutely.
Paul McCartney is live.
And the walkway was a bit closer than the top of Mount Everest, which I think was their first plan, right? To record the album cover at Everest, right? So
Another in the corner for Abbey Rd. John's
So-
good, it's a wee bit easier to get to.
top of the hill, but it's a bit easier, right? Cool. Okay, John, you okay with that, mate? So you like it, don't love it, I think, your take on
Yeah, I like it, don't love it. It's not the best album.
it? Okay,
Uh,
perfect.
I agree.
And-
I
and I-
agree, but I think it's definitely deserved it. It's not their best, absolutely not. I think Revolver's probably their best, but I do think it. And I love that. Oh, darling, that throaty raw thing as well. Just it was so different, and they were kind of vibing on their influences, Chuck Berry and stuff, and I think I love it as well because I was about 19 when my dad was a huge Beatles fan, but I was about 19 when I got into them myself, discovering their albums myself, what I liked, what I didn't. And I was reading a biography on Timothy Leary when I discovered really getting into Abbey Road. So it felt like everything was, no pun intended, coming together. So, like he'd obviously asked Lennon to write a song based on the slogan, "Come together, let's something for his party." So it felt like everything was just the right time for me. And I don't know if maybe that's why I've got such a soft spot for it. And as I said, Here Comes the Sun, I remember the same reaction I had when I heard Blackbird. I was like, if I ever have children, this will be the two songs they hear when they come into the world. And it was. I just wanted my children to hear the Beatles to be the first thing ever.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's perfect. They're very lucky to have a mum like you, Julie. Very lucky. So when I
Yeah,
was
they don't think that because I'm in their room just now because there's nowhere else here that is all covered in crap. So basically they don't think that right now, but thank you.
So we've always been pretty honest on these podcasts. When I was a bit younger, I thought that Here Comes the Sun was a Steve Harley song.
Oh,
I
yeah.
did because I was a big Steve Harley fan when I was 12 or whatever. And
He wasn't that big. He didn't know what songs he sang, for fuck's
it
sake.
was like, I knew what songs he sang, I didn't know what songs he'd written. So you did sing it, right? So
Stick to Rush, Brian. Stick to Rush.
oh mate, I'll come back to that. Okay, go George, you're on then. Since you're here, come on, tell us about Abbey Road. Gush, go gush for us.
Well, I've made no bones about how much of a Beatles fanboy I am. They're the most important band to me. Not just other people, but to me particularly. If it wasn't for me getting into the Beatles and just after Lennon died, I don't know if I would have went in the direction that my life went. And between 1981 and 85, I would say I probably listened to this album in its entirety at least 2 or 3 times a week. I loved it so much, but I do agree with David Ross that Revolver is their best album. I would say Revolver's probably it's flawless, but this probably means more to me in certain ways. It starts, no many albums start with 2 of the best ever singles, but this one does. It's very, very un-Beatlesy to have singles on an album. And it was a double A-sided single that I think only reached about number 4 in the charts, which was probably the lowest chart position in about 6 or 7 years.
I think it's because they split the sales in the UK, George.
But they did that with a few records and they got to number 1. They did it with Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane. It got to number 2, but this one only reached number 4, I think. But and Maxwell, Silver Hammer, Octopus's Garden, yeah, I will skip those tracks because I just don't. I don't appreciate them. I never have liked the sort of novelty Beatles that I just want to cut through the shite and get on to what they were really good at. And when you get into side 2, it really moves me probably like no other record does, especially when it gets to Golden Slumbers and it's over, they're over. and you know they're over. And when I was listening to this like 10 years, 11 years after they'd broken up, and a year or two after Lennon had died, I knew that they couldn't do this again. This could never happen again. So that carried a lot of weight for me. But Here Comes the Sun, like Julie was talking about early on, it's one of the songs, it's a song that we associate with our boy Michael. It's a song that he first, the same kind of way as Julie with her daughter. Lisa played Here Comes the Sun to Michael when he was literally a newborn, because we wanted to introduce him to the Beatles as well. It's just that, keeping it going for generations. It means a lot. It's a great album, a brilliant way to finish the hottest 7-year streak in recorded music history. Nobody's ever going to top that streak that they've been on. Of the top 5, I wouldn't say it's the best record, but it's the one that means the most to me. And listening to its possibilities, I'm 14 and 15 again and ready to discover a whole world of music. The Beatles are my Nina Pinta and Santa Maria. They are the vehicle for what came afterwards. So I love it.
Brilliant. I'll bring us down a peg then. So 2 things just to put us in a bit of context again. Here Comes the Sun is Boris Johnson's favourite pop song.
He's a fucking idiot, so it doesn't matter.
I'm just repeating facts, George.
Someone
here
actually wrote that for
You can't possibly appreciate Here Comes the Sun because the man has no fucking soul.
I thought that'd get us going.
Yeah.
And also,
I think you have to have a soul to appreciate the Beatles and especially that song. So it's probably been some, wee aid that's gave him that, and he just went, yeah, that's my favourite song. He doesn't even know who the Beatles are. No.
And the same way David Cameron said that Eating
Eating Rifles.
You don't get it, mate. Fuck off.
Eating Rifles. And also, well, Dixon Telfer says, Dixon said Abbey Road, it's a no. Here Comes the Sun is the only good song on it. And Maxwell Silverhammer is about a guy murdering a girl with a hammer because she won't go to the pictures with him. Yeah, this is top 5 material, ? Smiley face. He's an absolute no. Funny enough, David Ross is a yes, but David also says Maxwell Silverhammer is the song that broke the Beatles up. And there's kind of a bit of truth in that, I think. Lisa, come on then.
Well, there's a bit of a running theme in here because I think for me, it's very much, it's the personal aspect of this. Like Julie, it very much, I feel like it inextricably links me with my children. We have played this since they were very, very young, and they all know it word for word. They all love it. I can hear it in different rooms in the house at different points, but initially it was, when we got into our 30s and had our first trip abroad to France, and we were all excited and we were driving there, and that was the record, that was the holiday record, that got played on the trip. And now it has become a record that it doesn't matter if we're going to North Berwick and East Coast, that has to be put on. If it's not on, it's not a holiday, you know. So I could say anything else, but you've said it all, So really for me, it's very much about that, and I probably think more about that than anything else. It might not be their best record, but it's certainly my favourite. And I mean, what can I say?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here. So we've obviously got a few virtual guests. I've mentioned Dixon and David there. So 8 of the guys come back, and 6 of them were yeses. Martin Metcalf was a no. And just to kind of keep that theme going, Martin's a no for every selection tonight. So he just wanted to make, I know.
Merry Christmas.
He's quite proud of that, John. He did grudgingly conceded there was a couple of good songs on one of the albums somewhere, and that was as far as we got, really. And what else did we get? The flip side of that is Skin and Chris Thompson were a yes for all 5 albums tonight. I think Skin said they were all things of fucking beauty. Was his take on that, and so did Jack, my boy, actually. So yeah, mixed bag. 6 out of 8 were yeses. It was number one, as George says, 35 million copies and counting at the moment. Biggest selling Beatles album ever. Surprisingly bigger than Pepper and all that kind of stuff. And as a quick aside, the reason I love it is because I love McCartney's bass playing on it. I think it's amazing. I think
It's
it's very,
something. The bass line is something. Is one of his greatest bass lines. It's
Yep.
absolute perfection.
amazing, mate. Which, of course, was Frank Sinatra's famous Lennon McCartney song, wasn't it? His favourite one.
That's right.
I know.
I have to
poor
say
Frank.
that something is also mine, but you know I'm a bit of a soppy cow, so
Okay then. We'll start with you, Soppy Cow. Then, what are we saying? Are you in or out?
oh me, soppy cow. Oh, definitely in.
Yeah, ladies first. This one. And Julie,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Thought you said John. Big
John,
fan.
Julie.
Yeah, I'm in. I also like the Gallagher and McCartney version on the Help album of Come
Yeah,
Together.
come together. Yeah, that's a good shout, mate.
Yeah, it's a cracking version. I just enjoyed all the personal stories about this record, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, me too. Lovely. Thank you. George.
Despite Her Majesty, which the anti-royalist in me would like to guillotine from the album, it's a very strong yes from me.
Good man. And likewise. Do you want to sing, Her Majesty? It's only 23 seconds long, isn't it? You could.
I'd rather not.
Okay. Well, she's not with us anymore to defend herself, right? Okay, perfect. So obviously we're all in there. I'll leave you to quote this one, George. 47 minutes long, 79% of Twitter were yeses, which means 21% were.
Fucking idiots.
Fucking idiots, right? Of course they were. My PS to that is I think that just as a Beatles PS is that I scribbled 2 wee notes here. One was the Past Masters compilation, Volume 2 one. I think's the best compilation album ever. Which I might fight people for if we ever do a list of best comp albums. Also, I took a young lady to see the film. Anyone remember the film? 1978. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Oh, jeez, that's awful.
It was a first date, George.
Oh.
What would that be? I was just turning 13, I think. And man alive.
Was there a second date?
No, there wasn't.
No.
No, I get dumped so
Shocking.
quickly. I can't explain to you. I think I was dumped in the cinema, never mind getting out. It was so bad. And the last point, of course, we've stated this before, but if you didn't have the Beatles, you couldn't have the Ruttles. And, you know, if you've never watched All You Need Is Cash or Can't Buy Me Lunch or whatever, you must watch
As
them.
I said, I've always thought in the back of my mind, cheese and onions.
Cheese and Onions is the best, right?
It's Oasis.
She
It's
should have won a Grammy for that.
Noel Gallagher has borrowed cheese and onions so many times. It's
Lovely way to start. So we're in there. Okay, next one on is Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life. So I think John's going to lead us on this. Quick summary. So a month from Rolling Stone, months before the recording sessions for Songs ended, the musicians in Stevie Wonder's band had T-shirts made up that proclaimed, quote, "We're almost finished," unquote. It was a stock answer to casual fans and Motown execs and everybody who'd fallen in love with Wonder's early 70s gems and had then had to wait 2 more years for the next chapter. Songs, released in 1976, encompasses an incredible range of life experiences. The album's mastery of many styles remains astonishing, but the feat may not have meant so much had Wonder not delivered some of his most impassioned political art as well. Songs in the Key of Life linked all of this together in Wonder's all-encompassing inner vision. So that's Rolling Stone, Songs in the Key of Life, number 4, released 28th September 1976. John, all yours, mate.
Yeah, so I hadn't listened to this album at all. I'm not a fan of Stevie Wonder whatsoever. But 1976, 21 songs, double album. And we've talked about double albums in this podcast quite often.
We have.
105 minutes. I'm thinking, I'm not going to enjoy this. I would say it's his magnum opus. I would say it is a funkadelic masterpiece. So many great songs. Obviously, some songs I've heard, such as Sir Duke, Isn't She Lovely? But stuff like Ordinary Pain, Love and Need of Love Today, Village Ghetto Land, which I think is probably my personal favourite. Amazing. I think you actually listen to it now, and I think the production is so clear and crisp. Just on a different plane completely to what we see now. And I think, the backstory to the album, he was going to chuck it. He was going to just stop recording music and, go and do some great stuff, then change his mind, and he signed a deal which I think, and run about now, would be worth £201 million, which is mad when you think about it. 96-year album deal over 7 years. But yeah, it's not my type of music that I will go to. And a double album, I think it's an incredible piece of work. So yeah, fantastic.
Okay, brilliant. So it was his 18th studio album, 18th studio album, and it's the second one we've had on the list. I think we voted in Inner Visions, so it's the third one. We voted in Talking Book and Inner Visions, so it's just third one on the list. And it debuted at number 1, and it was only the third artist to do that with an album in America, and the first 2 were both Elton John, believe it or not. So yeah, it's got a bit of oomph about it. So we'll come back to a couple of those chats. Lisa, songs in the key of life.
Well,
Isn't she lovely?
Isn't she sparkly? I think is the
I thought that's David Parton fanning me.
key of tonight. Yeah, I have to say, I think the 80s really put me off Stevie Wonder, listening to the earlier stuff. It was kind of when I started really getting into music at school, and obviously a lot of hits at the time, and we would mention some of them, but my very first love, actually, he got me a few good records, but one of the ones he did buy me was I Just Called to Say I Love You, and I really didn't like it very much, but I couldn't say anything. Anyway.
Why?
I was kind of taken over by that. Oh my God, that's that record and all the rest of it. And I was madly in love. However, he did eventually chuck me, and that got chucked to the back of the pile. And unfortunately, my mum, sadly, he actually died in his early 30s, and still my mum says to me, "Oh, every time I hear that." You at one point, and I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, past all that, kind of put me off. So, later in life, listening to Stevie Wonder's earlier stuff, obviously, I think it's fantastic. This album, just song after song, just amazing stuff. Perfect.
Wow.
Maybe a bit long for me, but
yeah, as ever, I'll push a couple of buttons here. So I think that the
absolutely.
album's 86 minutes long, plus the 4 EP tracks that they added.
Brilliant songs in there. So
yeah,
it would definitely be in for me.
Okay. Cool. George, I was thinking of this when we talked about Village Ghetto Land. It was co-written by Gary Bird, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and
he's one of your men,
Gary
isn't
Bird,
he?
Yeah, Gary Bird wrote a couple of tunes.
Yeah.
Co-wrote a couple of tunes on this album, but he came back in 1983 with his own killer record called The Crown, which is about 10 minutes long, and Stevie Wonder's on that. He repays the favour on The Crown, but yeah, this is just a great album. I love this. As you were saying, his first album of his new Motown deal. John was mentioning early on, and he was given Motown shat it, basically. Went, name your price, Stevie, and they went, okay. So I want a 20% royalty in all records. I want a huge advance, and that was pretty smart actually by him, and it was pretty smart with Motown.
Was it?
What's that?
It's John. It's okay. Keep going.
Sorry, John.
He's having a rammy.
It was it was pretty smart by Motown to actually agree to this deal, because this was a guy who's 26 years old. This was his 18th, as you say, studio album, and everything he'd done up to this point was he was getting better and better and better. He took 2 years out to record this, and he came back with, one of the greatest albums of all time. But it's so good. The album takes a wee bit of time to warm up. I think the first side is a wee bit. It's good, but it only really starts exploding into life with the tribute to the great jazzmen, Basie, Miller, Satchmo, and the king of all, Sir Duke. Once it hits that point, there's no stopping it. By the time you get towards the end of side 3 and side 4, you get, if it's Magic, followed by As, followed by Another Star, and every one of those tracks is so different from the previous. It's a massively influential album, very political as well, as you mentioned, and obviously it's been, so many songs on it have been covered but never bettered.
Yeah, I agree with all that. And it's quite a chunky album. It's interesting. If you remember, we had a chat about there's 4 double albums in the top 30, I think it was, on the list. And there was this one, there was White Album, there was London Calling, and there was Exile on Main Street.
Yep.
And when we had a few chats about it, I remember we ran a sort of Twitter poll, and this one was sort of bottom of the 4. I think it was liked, but the other 3 were rated above it. And I didn't quite realise how big it was and how seminal it was again to be back and revisited it. Yeah, it was
I don't know
massive.
how many copies it sold, but it's
5 million sales to date in the US alone. 13 weeks number 1.
that's
when it
not a
came
lot
out.
of sales actually for an album of that.
5 times platinum.
magnitude.
Yeah, 100 million career sales. So I guess his worldwide stuff's probably made up for that. And I Wish and Sir Duke were both number 1s in America. So
But two brilliant singles, one after another, and then, as I say, those 3 towards the end of the album are just like, wow, just
Yeah.
shows you the depth of his songwriting ability. I'm a big Stevie Wonder fan, always have been. The guy's insanely talented, and if you ever watch some of those classic albums documentaries, you
Yeah.
watch him, you watch him himself demo a lot of this stuff. In a lot of these albums, Stevie Wonder plays a lot of this stuff himself. On this one, he didn't. He got a lot of his friends in. He get people like Minnie Riperton. For instance, Minnie Riperton came in. This might have been one of the last things she actually recorded.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock's on it, George Benson. It's an absolute cast of absolute top-notch professionals. So, no, I love this, and I'm a big Stevie Wonder fan. So, yeah, thumbs up for me.
62 musicians and singers
Yeah,
on the album.
but
62.
he could have done it all himself.
Yeah. I'm just saying, to a bit of organising, right? I think he was just using up Motown's budget, as you say, because they'd
You're paying for it. I'm paying for it.
keys to kingdom, didn't they? For sure.
I
Okay.
suppose rather than me saying, oh, maybe it's a bit long, maybe I should be praising him for the talent that he has to have such a huge amount of material that is album worthy.
No, I think it's too long, but I still think it's a great album. But I think it's too long. It's twice the length of Innervisions and stuff like that. I just don't think it needs to be twice the length. But the songs,
No,
the great songs in it are amazing.
I think you could lose maybe 1 or 2, but I think it can justify being a double album quite easily.
I think you'd lose. Is it Confusion? I wrote down. I thought it was terrible. Was that the
Yeah, it's sort of disco-y.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer?
Okay, it's all right. I thought you'd like that then.
No, mate, you know that. You know that. So I'll bring Julie in a second here. So one of the feedbacks was from Caroline, didn't he? So Caroline said, it's a yes from me. I was lucky enough to see Stevie at the Playhouse in 1989. He played 6 songs from this, including Sir Duke and I Wish, and an epic 35-song set, all for a time machine.
Jeez, oh, that'd be something.
Oh, wow. I love hearing these backstories and stuff. They're absolutely brilliant. Julie, Stevie Wonder.
Just checking, can you hear me okay? I keep getting wee things pop up on the thing on my laptop, so I'm just checking you can hear me okay. Sorry.
Fine, thank you.
Keeps popping up audio restart, and I'm like, oh God, have I killed my laptop? As I have done many times. Yeah, this is a great album. Like Lisa, though, I first came across Stevie Wonder when I was about 8, and I remember standing in Fine Fair to buy I Just Called to Say I Love You, and I was deliberating between the single, between that and Shaka Khan, I Feel For You, and I went for Stevie, and I'm kicking myself, I should have went for Shaka, but
Stevie's on that as well. Stevie's on Shaka.
of course, the harmonica, yeah. So
Yep.
thank you for making me feel better, George. But I did hold up I should have took Shaka. But
Shaka Khan.
I think at the time, I was young, I thought that was him just starting. It was only as I got into adulthood I realised, oh God, you know, little Stevie Wonder and then all the stuff with Motown, and I really appreciated him more. I had this album in my house for about 10 years, and every time I started it, it felt too much. As George was saying, it took a lot to warm up, and I kind of went away from it. And then after George Michael done the cover of As, I went, wait a minute, I'm going to go back to this. And I'm glad I did, but it's so weird. I bought it. I love Stevie, but I would skip to the tracks, like the kind of well-known ones,
Yep.
and it just felt like a slog at the beginning. I put it away because it felt overwhelming. There was so many tracks, and it just felt like a bit too much. But once you get into it, I mean, it's amazing, and I'm kicking myself. I left it sitting on a shelf for so long. But I return more to Inner Visions. That's the one I prefer more. But I think this is one, I think I gave up on it too quickly. It felt, the first few tracks, just weren't clicking with me. And I put it away, and then it felt so overwhelming. It felt like, you know, that way you see a big book, and it's like this, and it's like everybody's raving about it, and you're kind of like, oh, I've got to read this, and you're just kind of like, I don't want to read it yet. And then you read it, and you're like, oh God, I wish I'd done that years ago. So I do think it's worthy. I think Stevie Wonder is amazing. I think his later 80s stuff kind of sullied his genius a bit. I think he should just have left it. But I cannot deny this is an amazing album, and especially for this, I went back in and rediscovered it. And I mean, it's like a Paul McCartney and John Lennon. You take these people for granted. You think they're going to be there forever. You think this just comes easy to people. It's an amazing feat. It's an amazing album, and I appreciate it a lot more now than I did when I was younger. I think it's fantastic. It would be a yes for me, absolutely.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, cool. We'll get around the room. So I think the guys, we had 6 out of 8 yeses. So Martin was a no, as I mentioned. Also, Mr. Ross was a no on this one. So I'll only read out this one from David because he likes to tell us stuff. So for Stevie Wonder, he said no. Full disclosure, I once went out with this girl from the posh houses up near, is it Warnock? Is that right? Brackets, Lisa will know. She finally agreed to come back to
Warnock. What are you talking about?
Warnock. She finally agreed to come back to my house and thank a massive drop in her social standing. She brought a record, brackets, even though I hadn't asked her to. And it was this one. Back in 80-81, if it wasn't the Ramones, the Jam, the Clash, etc., it wasn't getting on the turntable. The Stevie had some weird hippie shit religious acknowledgement message on the back and the cover, and I slagged it for that. It didn't go down that well. A red card offence apparently. No snogging, no future. That was the end of that. Had to walk her home in the rain in silence. And on the way back, I got huckled into a police van, suspected of being a housebreaker whose description I matched. True story. So no, sorry Stevie, I didn't get in. You're not getting in.
So basically we've had Lisa's breakup because of Stevie, we've had David's breakup because of Stevie. Stevie?
Yeah, there's some issues. He
done?
has some issues going on.
If you just learn to trust Stevie in the first place,
Yeah, exactly.
none of this would have happened.
I hate to tell you, but I was gifted Shaka Khan as well.
You're just rubbing it in, Lisa. You're just rubbing it in now.
That is a tune. I feel for you. What else did they have? Missing an Angel, Eurythmics. Guess that's why I call it the blues. Elton. So although he didn't write a lot of great stuff in the 80s, his harmonica was everywhere.
Eurythmics?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Great stuff. So as I say, there's 6 out of 8 there. So where did we start? John, we started with you, mate.
I did. I had to go off there for 5 minutes, but yes, it's a definite yes for me. I think it's a fantastic album, even for a double album, and that takes a lot for me to say, as you will know.
Absolutely, mate. Lisa.
I've forgiven him for the 80s, so yes.
Thank you. George.
Absolutely.
Okay. Julie.
Although it's not my favourite Stevie Wonder, it's see for just some of the tracks alone. Absolutely. Standalone, it's amazing. Yep. It's a yes.
Yeah. Since it's Christmas, I'll stick it in as well. So we're a full house there from our end, and it definitely carries it. A couple of PSs with 84% Twitter were yes, George. Which we're getting there. A couple of things I wonder just to finish. One is that the thing I can remember most about that Village Ghetto Land was, do you remember George Michael sang it at the Nelson Mandela, I don't know, was it his 70th party or something like that they had at Wembley Stadium? And if I knew the song, I didn't really know it, if I'm being honest with you. And George Michael sang it, and it was just amazing, you know. And like everyone else, I had to go back the way, which I think we've all had to do quite a lot with stuff, and it was amazing. And also, I think he's the only guy, I think I'm right in saying, that has won 3 Grammys in a row for Album of the Year. Yeah. So there's other guys who've won 3 Grammys for Album of the Year, but not 3 albums in a row, if that makes sense. Yeah. Which I guess, and he's 25 in total, so.
Yeah, Brian, though, the Grammys is not exactly a benchmark because it's a lot of bullshit, like the Rolling Stone Top 100 at times.
Well,
Very true, John. Very true.
I wouldn't disagree, mate, but we are 67, 68% in agreement with the Rolling Stone list at the moment. So,
yeah, no, I'm not saying about this album, I'm just saying.
Just said. Okay.
Tune your Santa hat with that.
It's a lot of tune.
I'm wondering if the red wine that has been drunk during this podcast year is maybe something to do with the votes.
Moving on. Number 3 was Joni Mitchell, Blue. Rolling Stones said, from its smoky, introspective cover to its wholly unguarded approach to songwriting, Blue is the first time any major rock or pop artist had opened up so fully, producing what might be the ultimate breakup album and setting a still unmatched standard for confessional poetry and pop music. Using acoustic instruments and her octave-leaping voice, Mitchell portrayed herself as a lonely painter, aching to make sense of all her heartbreak. Along with its romantic melancholy, Blue was the sound of a woman availing herself of the romantic and sexual freedom that was until then an exclusively male province in rock. Mitchell continued to release excellent records throughout the 70s, but Blue remains her masterpiece. So that was Rolling Stone. Blue, her 4th studio album, released 22nd of June 1971, and it's the only one she has on the 100 at the moment. Julie, we're back to you first one.
I love Blue. I know it's been voted like the greatest album by a female artist ever. I think it should be like just the greatest album ever. I adore Blue. I came through this really just a kind of serendipitous way. I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar in and I was 17. Yeah. And I was 17, and there was me and another waitress there, and we didn't do any work, we Skyped, we just gravitated towards each other, we loved the same books, same music. And she said, oh, have you heard of Joni Mitchell? Now, at that stage, I was completely into grunge, Soundgarden, Nirvana, Mother Love Bone, just not at all, rock and grunge. So she's like, look, here's my album, listen to this, you'll love it. And I know it's like a pure cliche, oh my God, it changed my life, but oh my God, it changed my life. For the very first track, All I Want, just that I'm on a lonely road, traveling. I cannot tell how much I love this album. And it's really dark because she's got this long blonde Laurel Canyon, hippie, trippy, dippy, but the lyrics are really dark. I know she just split up for like Graham Nash, and she was sort of in a relationship with James Taylor, but it was like that whole thing about the acid, booze and ass, needles, guns and grass, lots of laughs. And it's just so sardonic, so jaded. As somebody who's lived it. And I love everything about this album. The lyrics really speak to me. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Obviously, I know she was influenced by Miles Davis, Blue, and she loved Picasso, Blue, and this is like her Blue period. A Case of You, you know, the lyrics on that, the piano at The Last Time I Saw Richard. I think she's really, really brave as well when she's saying, you know, I'm selfish and I'm sad and I've gone and lost the best. But I just love everything about this. I returned to this so many times. The way George was saying he could go back to Abbey Road listen to that repeatedly, weekly. I kind of get withdrawal symptoms. I've left it a wee bit too long, and it's like a favourite book. I'll dip in and out. You know, even just a paragraph on a favourite book, I'll dip into a song here, or I'll play the whole thing. I need a fix. I adore Joni, but this album is everything, and she's so brave. Little Green is her basically saying, "I gave up my daughter for adoption." That was so brave at the time, especially for a female, putting it out there. And I think the songs still stand up. I think there's a reason why it's on the top 100. I think it's criminal. It's the only one of hers that's on the top 100. But
at the moment.
this should be top 10, let alone top 100. I absolutely adore this. And I do still have The Waitress. I still have that album. She never got it back. So yeah, sorry Rachel, if you're ever watching.
It's another confession tonight. We're racking them up.
I'm putting the wine away. Still coming out tonight, yeah.
So just to finish, so big Joni fan or a big fan of Blue, or both?
Oh, both.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay. But Blue was like my gateway drug into Joni. I didn't know her. As I said, I was so into grunge at the time, so into rock and kind of heavy, really kind of heavy rock at the time, and especially grunge. I was a grunge baby. And this just, oomph, I'd never heard of Joni at all, which was weird because my dad was a big Dylan fan and he always had tons of really eclectic mix, but he never did a Joni album. This was my first time coming across Joni. And then I kind of was like, you know, you just crate dig every Saturday. I was like, I've got to find more of her stuff. The next album after that I came across was Court and Spark, then Hejira. I mean, I adore her. She's amazing. And I remember when Jagged Little Pill was out in Alanis, and I'm not taking anything away from Alanis, but they're all like, oh my God, it's still Confessional. What a confessional album. And you're like, we've had Joni, we've had Stevie Nicks, we've had, Kate Bush, and they was like, my God. And I think that's a really telling thing about women, that at that stage, they thought this was something new when she'd actually blew everything apart like 30 years prior.
They were probably very influenced by it anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
She was. We reviewed the Morissette album, Julian voted it in, and there was some quotes back to how much the Joni Mitchell album influenced her for sure. But you're right, I mean, Mitchell was so far ahead of her time, and certainly in the songwriting, the lyrics and stuff, that even guys weren't really doing that, never mind a female at the time. So absolutely wonderful. Okay, lovely, thanks for that. It was fourth album we mentioned, breakup album. It was released on Reprise, which was actually Frank Sinatra's label. We mentioned Frankie Boy earlier on there, but he set Reprise up to get a bit like Wonder to get his space from, can't remember, was that Columbia, I think? Yeah. That was the main label. Capitol, thank you, Josh. So they had a whole bunch of stuff going on at the time, didn't we? Neil Young and what have you. So, George, let's go to you, mate.
A full disclosure one for me as well. Back when I was about 17 or 18, I was going out with a girl and she asked me to get her this album for her Christmas. And I bought the album for her and I went, I'm going to have a wee life. Because I didn't know the album. I knew Joni Mitchell from Big Yellow Taxi and a couple of other tunes, but I didn't really know much about Joni Mitchell. And she asked me to get her Blue for Christmas. And I played the album and I was like, cannot give this album away. So I broke up with her. It's not just me. I broke up with her, so I didn't have to give her the album. And I kept the album. So I'm really sorry if she's watching this, like cursing me and sticking needles in a voodoo doll 40 years later. But it was such a good album. It was
what did you give her then? What album?
I gave her nothing. I let her be broke up just before Christmas. So I wouldn't have to give her this album.
Oh, mate.
Oh, George, it's the illusion. I just thought you were the sweetest guy I've ever met.
Oh, that was a bad boy.
He was a badass.
No, it's just a nasty piece of work. So I'm very sorry about that. It's using this as my confessional tonight. So
doing very well tonight. So you
I'm not throwing any stones in my glass house. I kept the album that somebody gifted me as well. So somebody lent it to me, and I've still got it as well in my loft. So no.
Forgive me, Joni. I have sinned. I loved Ladies of the Canyon, but I go back to this one probably more now.
Right.
I really appreciate the nuance of it all. a lot more than I thought. The songs on Ladies of the Canyon when I was younger were better than Blue, but the older I've got, the more I appreciate the fragility of life. I really do appreciate Blue more. She's one of the great songwriters of the era who doesn't always necessarily have to hide behind the cryptic and allegorical. It's on the page, and even if you have to excavate a little bit, it's there. And rarely as an artist made the day-to-day living sound so beautiful and ethereal. Nobody sounds like Joni Mitchell. Nobody sounded like her beforehand, and still nobody sounds like her today. But things like My Old Man, Kate Bush, you can tell Kate Bush is heavily influenced by Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just, you go through the whole album, and every fucking song is just devastating. River is as good a song as you're likely to hear on any album. She's a case of you. Joni is a sound sommelier. A case of Joni, you're still on your feet. She's just perfect. And this is pretty much a perfect album. So I can't possibly even criticise it. It's that good.
Lovely, thanks, George. And flip side to Songs of Kane Live, this album is 36 minutes long, end to end, 10 tracks.
Not an ounce of fat on it.
Literally not. You're dead right, like a marathon runner, mate.
And it's not. There's not. It's not even overly produced. There's no excess instrumentation on it. It's absolutely flawless, and it stands up probably above most of our contemporaries from that gilded era, and that's saying something.
Big hit at the time, number 3 UK, in fact it's only number 13 in US. It kind of gathered momentum rather than being a hit at the time. Platinum now. She's won 9 Grammys, so obviously she has had her chops. Interestingly, one of the reviews that I read about her was saying that she in effect, that early to mid-70s period was as prolific as David Bowie was.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I thought was fascinating. If Bowie gets significant recognition, and quite right too for.
But
and Dylan, they always talk about Dylan's run, and look at her run albums as well.
And Stevie Wonder. We just talked about Wonder. So Blue, I don't think Mitchell quite gets that, or certainly I'm not aware of her getting that much. Maybe more of a musician, and but no, she's fantastic. Lisa. Sorry, I just need to move my Wally Winky. Can see there.
I'm not.
Looks like a comb over now.
What I can add to all of that, other than I completely agree. It's a fantastic album. I think for me, what I love about it is just see that the acoustic idea that really allows her. She's got such clarity of voice, and her vocal range is so incredible, and the sort of acoustic background just allows her voice to really shine and allow you to really think about what she's singing about. But I feel as if the voice just goes right inside me, like I'm listening to it, I just feel as if she's reaching right inside me, and I really feel what she's saying. And I think that's to do with the production as well. I love this album, and to be fair, I had only really known other songs like from growing up, like Big Yellow Taxi. My parents played a lot. I only really came to this album later in life as well, and it is just so, I hate saying perfect, but you know what I mean.
I do. Yeah.
Also, I like the idea that I was in August. I was in Crete, and my daughter took us down to stay in Matala.
Okay.
And there's these, obviously the caves in Matala are really famous, and apparently Joni wrote Carrie in those caves.
Yeah.
Story. I think I've said this before, but there was a whole commune, a sort of hippie commune, going on. That they all stayed in Matala. They were writing songs together. They were making music. It was that kind of era. And I quite liked being there and looking up at the caves and imagining Joni writing Carrie up there.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's Carrie Reditz, I think her name is. So a big kind of red-headed woman that was one of her pals that she hung out with at the time when she was doing that stuff. Because she also she
Couldn't tell you much more about who was there and what was going on, but I do know to this day Matala has got a real hippie vibe still. You know, the
Unlike
playing red.
Matalan, which doesn't.
I don't know about that, George, now.
The Greeks didn't need it in.
There's certainly a commune living outside it most of the time, you know, so yeah, which isn't good at all. Yeah, she pops up in California as well, indirectly. And again, Joni Mitchell's talked about how important she was to her at the time, so which is lovely. So you love it, right, Lisa?
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Me too. And of course, she, you know, later on talking about her now, but talking as if she's not here, she's still here, right? But she has some serious health issues, and she's obviously came back in inverted commas in the last 2 or 3 years now. Played at Newport Folk Festival, Jazz Festival, sorry, and then she did some stuff last summer again, which is wonderful to see after all this time. And hopefully,
if you ever get a chance to see one thing about Joni Mitchell before I pass you on, but to John, is the song "Both Sides Now." If you ever listen to both versions of it, the version she did as a young woman and the version she did recently, probably about 15 years ago. Listen to both of them back to back, and it floors me if I listen to both of them consecutively.
Is that the one she's singing live, and it's like it's just older, and it's like this, her voice is so different. It's like the life experience and the voice, like she's lived it now.
So much weight. Really
amazing,
incredible to see an artist do that in 2 different ways.
Yeah,
I find there's so many amazing artists have covered her songs that in itself tells you how amazing her songs are, if that makes sense. John.
Right, okay. Well, I couldn't get this album yesterday, and he sent it to me, and I listened to it. I've only listened to it once, right? So I'll hold that up in a car, driving to Motherwell and back. Probably not the best vibe.
It's not Crete, is it?
No.
It wasn't Matala, it was
Motherwell. They've got caves in Motherwell. I know that for a fact.
Oh, they absolutely have. So I absolutely struggled with it, and I know there's a lot of a backstory because I read about it and a breakup with Graham Nash and a relationship with James Taylor and all that sort of stuff. So the lyrics, I tend to miss that the first time I listen to a record. I'm more about the music, and the thing that got me with this is her voice grates me.
Yeah.
Right. So we've had this discussion about Dylan's voice. For some people. Yep. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not. You know, I'm sure she's got some amazing lyrics, and I will revisit this album. But crikey. Give me Natalie Merchant, give me Norah Jones before this every single day of the week. I say, driving from Motherwell to Denny may not be the best way to listen to this album.
No, it's not the Pacific Coast Highway, though, is it?
No, it ain't.
To be fair, John, you're right. I mean, although we're having a bit of a live-in here, but you know, our voice and vocals and you know the moving through the octaves and stuff. There is a bit of Marmite in there. People do say it's too much, and
that's right. Yeah,
and as she's got older, she's done a lot less of that, of course.
Yeah, and I would say that as well about Kate Bush. I find her vocal difficult to get into. There's certain artists.
Yeah, get that.
Great with their vocal, and I thought, nah, no for me.
Okay, mate. No, I understand that. And as you say, you've not had a lot of time with it either, so maybe we chat about it again. You'll be back in there again. Okay, cool. 7 out of the 8 guys. Martin was obviously, in fact, Martin didn't particularly dislike it. He just doesn't really get Joni Mitchell, but But actually, he wasn't particularly critical on it. The rest of the guys were absolute slam dunks. Caroline said, yes, yes, yes. A stunning album showcasing Joni's immense talent. The perfect Christmas listen to, deserves to be higher in my view, higher than 3, which I think's fair enough. And just on that, I was playing River the other day, and I only ever remember when it comes on this time of year of that, you know, the Jingle Bell sort of piano key thing that I don't know what that is, the chords that they do. And it's wonderful. It just seems to it just kind of hits you at this time of year that it's there. It's a bit like Die Hard, isn't it? You know, you don't really know it's a Christmas film until it's
Until you
Christmas.
watch it.
Till it's Christmas, yeah. UPIA and all that.
Can I just interject very quickly on an
then.
absolute bugbear of mine, which is a lot of people have came to Joni through Love Actually, the film I detest with every fibre of my being, and they now go,
Oh, that's
oh my
terrible.
God, she made Emma Thompson cry. And I'm sitting going, the album is better than the shitty necklace that it gives to the wee skanky scroon in the department store. And please don't tell me this is how you came across Joni Mitchell. Okay, that's me done. Merry Christmas. Fine, done.
Very good.
I don't think I've even watched the whole of Love Actually, so don't worry.
No, I got dragged to it with a friend who said she'd watched it and she's like, oh my God, we have to watch this in the cinema. It's amazing, it's amazing. I was like, okay, let's fine. Yeah, no. I did get very drunk watching it in the cinema, so that helped. Yeah, and I was like, I don't know how this is a love story or Christmas film, or I don't understand anything about it. I hate it unreservedly. And the bit with Emma Thompson crying, it's like, oh my God, she got a Joni Mitchell CD. No wonder she's crying. I'm like, it's the best bit in the film. She gets a Joni Mitchell CD.
I'd have been well chuffed with Joni Mitchell CD for Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just a lot of people are like, they think Joni's released one album and it's the greatest hits of Joni because that was in Love Actually, and it makes me want to blow my brains out. So again, Merry Christmas.
I know for a fact, Julie, that Richard Curtis is a big fan of this podcast.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so
Blackadder was great though.
so
Yeah, I'm
props.
just wanting to add that.
I love Notting Hill. Notting
Notting Hill, 4 Weddings as well. Fantastic. Yeah. I was just going to say, I can't think of any other artist. Now, bearing in mind, this is an acoustic solo album, right? Folk album, inverted commas. But 2 of my favourite covers are from this album. So you've got Prince, who covers A Case of You, and it's just wonderful because I love Prince, right? But you've also got Nazareth, who covered This Flight Tonight.
Yeah, Flight Tonight, yeah.
And when I was young again, the sort of mid-70s, I loved that song. I think 75, 76 or something. I loved it, right? And
I have not heard that. I will
Nazareth, they cover it as a rock song, right? And
Joni
Mitchell,
yeah.
and Joni Mitchell toured London 77 or something like that, and she came on and played it as her first song. And she says, "I'm going to play my Nazareth cover," and played This Flight Tonight. So I had to think about Nazareth. I also thought they wrote Love Hurts. I was in a bit of a role. Genuinely, George, when I was going through my mid-70s,
you're a bad boy.
I am just so bad stuff, right? Grant McPhee gives me into trouble all the time for stuff, right?
Isn't it funny though how a voice can affect different people so very differently?
Mm.
You know, I absolutely adore her voice. As I say, it just seems to reach right through me, and it grates on him. Whereas I was the one that, you know, with Dylan, I struggle with his voice, and it's obviously it's very subjective.
That's why we're on, isn't it? So we only had 68% of our friends on Twitter supporting us on this one, so we actually do have quite a lot of idiots out there. John was probably one that voted, to be fair, since he's been back off the call again, right? So probably a way to vote again, probably. Okay,
Wait
cool.
for a course glass of wine. Don't be silly.
I know. So we get seven or eight on. So we can ask Johnny comes back on. I guess the other 4 obviously sounds like for big tick boxes there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay. Well, last Johnny comes on, but it's carried anyway for sure. My PS to all that was that she's also on 2 of the most sort of iconic concert films ever recorded. One of which you'll definitely know. Yeah, Last Waltz. Totally right. The bit I love about it is when she's singing Behind the Curtain to Helpless by Neil Young, if you saw that, because they wouldn't let her come on stage because she was an unannounced guest, right? Which I thought was great. But she was one of the backing singers on the first time that Roger Waters did The Wall live in Berlin after The Wall came down. I didn't know that. I didn't found a clip on it, and she's there knocking it out. So yeah, you know, chops to her for that. Cool. She's in.
Fountain of knowledge, Brian. Fountain of knowledge.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's the hat. It's a magic hat. So number 2 is the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Okay, as Rolling Stone said, quote, "Who's going to hear this shit?" unquote. A Beach Boys singer Mike Love asked the band's resident genius Brian Wilson in 1966, as Wilson played him the new songs he was working on. In fact, Pet Sounds actually completed a circle of influence. Wilson initially conceived of Pet Sounds as an effort to top the Beatles' Rubber Soul. With its vivid orchestration, lyrical ambition, elegant pacing, and thematic coherence, Pet Sounds invented, and in several senses perfected, the notion that an album could be more than the sum of its parts. Wilson made Pet Sounds without the rest of the band mainly, using them only to flesh out the vocal arrangements. The album centrepiece, as God only knows, arranged with harpsichord, horns, sleigh bells and strings to create an almost spiritual feeling. In the years to come, countless artists would aspire to live in Wilson's spiritual world. So that's actually quite a nice review. That was number 2, Pet Sounds, Rolling Stone, released 16th of May 1966, and it was their 11th studio album, and interestingly, the first and only Beach Boys album on the list at number 2. Okay, George, all yours, mate.
I love the Beach Boys. I grew up listening to the Beach Boys, and probably my earliest recollections of them are those just made me want to be somewhere that wasn't, Largs or Saltcoats. It made me think beaches could be somewhere pleasant to be rather than places full of broken glass and dog shit. I wanted to go to California because of the Beach Boys. But when I first heard Pet Sounds, I probably heard it around about the same time as I was listening to Joni Mitchell's Blue. And I didn't really get it back then. The older I got, I think I was probably in my early 20s by the time I really get into it. And I remember it was one of the albums I used to put on when I used to go and meet my first wife. She'd be coming into Marylebone Station, and I'd have a wee bit of time. I'd have a couple of pints, and I'd sit in my office, and I'd have a wee sort of just catnap, and I'd have Pet Sounds on in the background, and I'd listen to it, just in anticipation of her coming in the next hour or whatever. And it just speaks to me, but the time they're half a minute into the opening track, Wouldn't It Be Nice, which is a song that always reminds me of that time. You're hit by one of the most perfect sets of harmonies ever recorded.
Yeah.
You've got Hal Blaine and Carol Kay, as the rhythm section. For the Wrecking Crew, it's the Beach Boys themselves, perform the vocals. And I've got a great. I bought the deluxe Pet Sounds CD a few years ago.
Yep.
And it broke down all the tracks, so you can actually listen to everything, just the vocals, strip all the music away and just listen to the Pet Sounds, the vocals, and it's stunning. It's an incredible piece of work. Young Love has never sounded so achingly perfect. It's mad to think that a kid of 24, 23, 24 could create such a rounded piece of work. It's superb. It's like being at the world's spookiest fairground. Let's go away for a while. Is like, it's Brian Wilson trying to be Burt Bacharach and succeeding. I don't like Sloop John B. I've never liked it. It just felt like it stuck out with thumb on the album.
Yeah.
But right after that, you've got God Only Knows, and that's like one of the great lyrical pop songs, sonic pop songs you'll ever hear. It's an album filled with beautiful insecurities, baroque melodies and offbeat sounds. And if you just scratch beneath the surface, it's so ghostly, it's almost goth. Tomorrow is here and gone so fast. I just wasn't made for these times. It's. I could hear the Jesus and Mary chain doing this. That's how wide it reaches. It's a great album. It's a perfect teenage album. Love it.
So thanks, Charles. That's fantastic. And just taking that point, although this was what I said, their 11th studio album, but this, I'll say their first adult album, for want of a better
Proper
word.
album, yeah.
Yeah. And the very first line, of course, on it is wouldn't it be nice if we were older?
Yeah.
You know, and there was a whole thing about he just said he would stop touring. So he stopped touring the year before. So it's kind of lots of those similarities with what the Beatles end up doing, but
Yeah.
Wilson was kind of ahead of his time, really, saying like, what I want to do is
Absolutely.
make music. I don't know about there playing to kids and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
and it was, yeah, you're right. I think there's a lot of chat about it was kind of respected more than loved, the record, for a long time. But I think over the years, of course, it's became more and more loved as well. Fascinating guy, absolutely good. Literally, there's a podcast on Brian Wilson, I guess, on its own.
If you ever see that there's a movie they made a few years ago, and the two actors play Brian Wilson. One was Paul Dano, and the other one was John Cusack, and they play Brian Wilson at different points in his life. And Paul Dano, that sort of slip into serious mental illness. It's very, very affecting.
Yeah.
And where his head was at this point, where he was getting a bit lost. It's really worth watching, and how he gets out of it round the other side.
What was it called, George? Do you know?
Love and Mercy.
Love and Mercy. Good, mate. I'll go and find
Really
that. Stick
good
it
movie.
on the chat. Thanks very much. Lovely. That's great. Cost $70,000 to make. 66, which is 630 grand today's money. So, but like Stevie Wonder at the time, he was absolutely
Worth
getting
every penny. Yeah.
getting his money. Yeah, time has proven that. For sure, mate. Lisa. Oh, Lisa's not there. John. I thought I'd ask Lisa, she's not there. John, what was your vote on?
Sorry, that was the supermarket order coming in the door.
Quite right, mate. John, what was your vote on Joni Mitchell? Never asked you.
Out.
That's okay. Well, we thought that, we guessed that, but it's in anyway. So sorry about that.
Christmas madness.
Christmas madness.
I have never ever so far in this podcast done 5 out of 5, and I'm not starting now.
Oh, what you're like the Grinch, right? So, go on then, John. Tell us how much you love Pet Sounds.
Yeah, I mean, crikey, where do you start with the Beach Boys, right? They're very saccharine at times, therefore not for everyone, but this album is not that. They're often imitated. The Ever Better, probably not. The Sun Sea Surf, I think that's out the window here. It's pretty much a Brian Wilson soul album. And I think the first single, which name escapes me, was
Caroline No.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
So it's quite, I think it's quite interesting, the historical take and all that kind of stuff, and quite like a lot of the albums that we have talked about in this journey in the past 12 months weren't well received when they first landed, and this one didn't really do too well. Did okay.
Okay, number 10 in Billboard.
That's right. Yeah,
2 in the UK.
You would expect to be better, so I was a bit surprised about that. Lots of self-interpretation, paranoia, drugs, breakup relationships going on in his life, and so a great album. I think, and I also think as well, we talked about Abbey Road, the album cover, how iconic.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck it, fucking hell. What about this one? Right? Yeah. One of the worst album covers in history.
There's a story behind that thing, isn't there?
Well, there is, because they got banned for the San Diego Zoo for mishandling the bloody animals. Right?
Oh, very good. I didn't know that was a story. I thought it was another one.
Yeah,
very good.
Banned for the zoo. So
okay, we'll go back to the music then.
But but love it. God only knows, all those songs, fantastic. So big thumbs up.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Has in his head he wanted to make a Beatles album that sounded like Phil Spector? was his kind of working thought process, and I think arguably he's probably not a million miles off
That's
that.
right.
I don't think.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think he listened to Rubber Soul and thought, "Fucking hell, that's amazing. I want to do better than that." And then they did, and then essentially, some or not, maybe not all of the Beatles thought, "Fucking hell, we've now got to improve," and that led to Sergeant Pepper.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's almost circle.
Yeah, it's amazing what went on around that time, and you've got Dylan knocking it out at 66 as well, and what have you. So absolutely amazing.
I saw Brian Wilson with the Wondermints back in 2008 do Pet Sounds.
Wow.
He did Pet Sounds, and then he did the rest of the greatest hits. But it was like, wow, we finally got a group who were absolutely tuned into him. It was an incredible evening.
I bet it was, mate. Where was that?
Royal Albert Hall in London.
Some of your favourite gigs in there, right?
It's the place I've seen most at.
I know.
Actually.
Amazing.
Or that or the Barrowland.
A bit different.
Just a little, yeah.
Lisa, now you're back from Tesco's.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Every little helps.
You're supposed to be here later. Pet Sounds is an album that gets played in here just about every Friday night, I have to say. So definitely a favourite with us. I absolutely adore it. Love the harmonies. I think it should be in. I just love that. God Only Knows is just one of my favourite all-time songs, and so I think it just should be in the top 100 just for that.
Yeah, here, absolutely. I'll go on to Julie then, and we'll have a bit of a wrap on it then. Julie, are you in the Love Fest?
Yeah, it's so weird because I first came across the Beach Boys when it was like house parties, and it was a greatest hits, and it was like a surfer on the surfboard, and it was all the poppy.
Yeah.
So I stayed away from Pet Sounds for the longest time because I was like, it's just going to be really poppy. And it was, I think it got reissued in the 90s or something. I was, or something, I can't remember what it was, but for whatever reason. And I must admit, the cover really put me off for a long time as well, because I kind of thought this is like a Val Doonican thing. I was like, I don't know what I'm coming into here. But God Only Knows was meant to be our wedding dance song, but the DJ didn't have it. But he didn't tell us that until we were actually doing our wedding dance song, and we were like, where's God Only Knows? It's amazing.
So what did you have then? Julie?
Well, he thought because we asked for God, he thought we're a couple of religious nuts, so they put on Heaven by Bryan Adams.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Talking Heads. Yeah.
Yeah. So
or psychedelic first.
That was a bit of a. And we were just like, just go with it, kind of thing. Yeah. But we were like, and he just thought we were a couple of like God botherers because we'd asked for God. He thought it was like a religious thing, and we were like, oh my God. Anyway, by that point, I was very drunk. So I love God Only Knows. One of the songs I love is Caroline No, and one of see that Where Did Your Long Hair Go, Caroline No. I didn't realise at the time, but see, as you get older and your hair gets short, you've got kids and you're getting older, and it's like, and it just felt like in that line it encapsulates the loss of youth and a man looking at that they're shared a life together, but it's like, where has that youth went? And that's in one line. It was amazing. I always find it so poignant. It's an amazing album. I'm just echoing it what everybody said. I think it is, his album. It's his masterpiece, and I love the fact that they were kind of, as John was saying, the Beatles. He was inspired by the Beatles. They were inspired by him. It was like they're pushing each other to, it kind of drove them a bit mad, literally. But it's such an amazing album. It stands up. And even if every single song in it was crap, see for God Only Knows, it's got to be in just for that alone. But they're not crap. It's amazing.
The unsung hero of the album for me is Carl Wilson, the singer, the Brian's younger brother. He's just an incredible singer, and he took the lead on God Only Knows, I think.
Yeah, he did.
He is the guy. It was really, I think Brian was writing songs. He really wanted his brother to sing, and
Yeah.
Carl just nailed that one. So
Yeah,
he's
I
the
can't
star of the
imagine
album.
any other voice
Yeah.
No,
singing that. It's perfection.
it
There's
really is.
there's a video on YouTube of the last time they all played together, the Beach Boys, which I think was in Nebworth 1980. I think it's called Good Timing.
Nebworth.
And Nebworth's probably not particularly well set up for
So,
the Beach
sorry,
Boys.
am I high? The Beach Boys played netball.
Yeah,
Never mind, I'm
1980.
cutting off at the source.
But it's the last time that the full Beach Boys band played live together.
Before
And the
Dennis
set
died.
list reflects that. It's absolutely amazing. Dennis Wilson's there, and all the old guys, all the groups there. So it's fantastic. Cool. All righty. So we
Brian, just
Sorry?
very, can I just interject really quickly? See, since
Of
this
course.
is a Christmas confessional,
Uh-huh.
Julie, I can't even remember what my first dance was. And I wondered if that was a sign of things to come.
Is the great man next to you there? Do you want to ask him? No? No. Okay, he won't remember either unless it's Chopin or something.
Probably put the Tesco order away. I very much doubt it.
Okay, but if he's about, we'll ask him before we finish. Okay. Anyone else want to do first waltzes? First or second weddings?
I did. What did we do?
Let's go to the camps or something to join it.
No, it wasn't. We did a bit of Blur and we did a bit of Paul Weller. And I tell you,
Such a romantic, John.
No,
You're
but
you're
the
so
lovely
romantic.
songs.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
did.
Was it You Do Something To Me?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you do
Yes.
something
Yes, it
to
was. Yes. We did Alicia's Attic.
I've
All
played
right.
that for you on the radio show.
Yeah,
before.
you have.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, Marion's done. Yep. So that was
George,
it. That was a
George, you get
first.
any first waltzes?
I've been married twice, so
I know.
I've done it twice. First one was
Not the same song, please.
no, not the same song. Even though I met both of my wives in the same place. Strangely,
Wow. Wow.
Dare we
but
ask?
no. The first one was Unchained Melody, The Righteous Brothers, and the
Mhm.
second one was Islands in the Stream.
Oh,
Ah.
Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. And
props for that.
in the second marriage, when we did the dance, everyone joined in. Everyone was at. We had a tent in Regent's Park. We hired that part of Regent's Park out, and we had a big tent in there, and everyone joined in, and it was a wondrous
wonderful.
afternoon.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
If
Thanks
Richard
for that.
Curtis is actually watching, just saying,
They,
there, just saying, next movie, perfect.
Yeah.
Alicia's Attic was The Incidentals. We
Ah.
love that song. So,
Brilliant. Thanks for that, guys.
Yeah.
It's all coming out tonight. This is great.
What about
Yourself,
you, Brian?
I was Unchained Melody as well, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. 91, I think that was. So,
Same here. Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Probably
Cool.
a bit better work than I did.
Lorna wouldn't agree. Yeah, we're still going. What we've got, 7 out of 8, so we'll go around the room here. Are we all in here? Sounds like a big thumbs up for everyone, yeah? It's iconic, isn't it?
I'm in.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. It's actually my second favourite Beach Boys album, but I still
After
think it's amazing. Surf's Up,
something. Okay.
first kind of eco album, really. Did things, I guess, big album, 71 or something like that. I've got a great Brian Wilson story to finish before we move on. I know we're extending it a little bit tonight, but it is Christmas. There's so many of them, right? But this is great, right? So sometime in the 80s, he was touring somewhere, and after the gig, you do the meet and greets and stuff, right? So he always had like a whole bunch of musicians and famous people there coming to see him. So one of the people who came to meet him was Don Henley from the Eagles. So he's sitting doing his kind of, how's it going, everyone. So they're coming over one at a time. So eventually Don Henley comes over and he goes, hi, Don, how are you? And he goes, oh, Brian, that was amazing and you're great and all that kind of stuff. So he has like a program brochure thing. So he said, would you write a few words on it? So Brian Wilson gets his pen out and writes on it. To Don, congratulations, you've written some amazing songs. All the best, Brian Wilson. And gives him it back and he walks away. So Don Henley walks away with this thing under his arm. He kind of chuffs. So he just about to walk out the door, and Brian Wilson shouts, "Don, Don, Don." So he turns around and he says, "Come back, come back." So he comes back thinking he's going to say to him, you know, we should record together, or we should do something. So he says, "Give me your brochure." So he gives the brochure back, and he puts it down in front of him, and he gets his pen and he scores out amazing, and he writes "good" next to it and gives him it back again. Gives him it back again. It goes away, right?
Done, Brian Wilson.
Well done, Brian. Props to Mr. Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking hate Eagles.
I know, me too, right? Desperado.
You do know our friend Bob's got a couple of
He has, yeah, Bob's got
stories.
stories, yeah. Brian Wilson stories.
He does,
Mr.
yeah.
Wilson, yeah.
If I could have got him on the podcast, I'm sure we would have got him. But he's promised in 2024 he's going to join us. We'll see how that goes. So, Bob, if you're watching, mate, we'll keep you to that. Okay, so we're finishing hopefully on a high. So the last one tonight we have is number 1 on the Rolling Stones list, which is "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye. So I'll have a quick summary of that, and then Lisa will give us a quick take on it. Okay, in 1970, Gaye was in a dark and contemplative place, wounded by the death of his frequent duet partner, Tammy Terrell, yearning to sing subtler and more substantive material, and mulling over his brother Frankie's horrifying tales of his recent stint fighting in Vietnam. After some hesitation, Gaye embraced the song "What's Going On," originally crafted by his friend Obie Benson from the Four Tops, and unleashed one of his most spectacular vocal performances in a career full of them, scatting and improvising around the main melody. Motown Records founder Berry Gordy initially resisted releasing "What's Going On," but when the song became an instant hit, Gordy gave Gaye a single month to craft an album to accompany the single. What emerged was soul music's first concept album and one of the most important and influential LPs ever made. At the end of the final song, the music shifts back into a jazzy reprise of the title track. As the album fades out, the groove continues on. 5 decades later, it still hasn't stopped. So that was the last one on our Rolling Stones 100 list, which I struggled to read there. It's getting quite emotional. Woohoo! It was released on the 21st of May, 1971, and it says, like the Beach Boys, the only Marvin Gaye album on the list at number 1. So Lisa, take us home with Mr. Gaye.
Well, Smokey Robinson said that this was the greatest record ever made, so who am I to argue with that? As you've already said, his producer and Motown were not so keen. I think that they just felt that how were they going to make hits out of a politically conscious album. But I think he got to a stage in his life where he wanted to escape from that and actually sing about what he was feeling himself, not only just about the world, but also in his personal life. His brother had come back from Vietnam. So he lost the tie and the suit, grew a beard, and basically wrote this album. The first, "What's Going On," is interesting. I think people always see it as a question, but it's actually, there's no question mark there. It's what's going on. He's telling us what's going on. And although it's in a sense, it's a protest album, it's not like a call to revolution. It's much more gentle. It's more asking us to, or imploring us to reflect on the issues that he's concerned about. And the first song, "What's Going On," basically stands alone and then just leads on to every other song in the album, which flow together so smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And they encompass all the themes that he wants us to think about. He wants to think about war. He's concerned about the planet, police brutality, urban poverty, all the things that he felt were concerning him in America, but also worldwide. And I just feel as if it's all the issues that he talks about in his lyrics are actually so pertinent to us today, and that's probably what makes it such a masterpiece, and one that will stand the test of time. I think it's just such a lush album. He'd found his own voice. He felt that he actually admitted that he thought that he'd been singing too loudly, in the former hits from the Motown hit factory, and he had this more sort of floaty, soft, gentle voice, and the music was influenced from soul, jazz, funk. I think it's just such a wonderful album. I've probably not been very clear in what I'm trying to say there, but you know where I'm going, and I think at the end, I think at the end of the day, today it's as vital impression as it was then, and I don't know what he would say if he was alive today. And I know myself, when I was playing it earlier on, and I was listening to Save the Children, I have to say I actually felt so emotional, what's going on in our world today, especially with Gaza, Yemen. I just thought, oh my God, what, it's just so prescient for us in these times, and I felt really quite sad, actually. But having said that, it's a lovely album, and in its own way, it is joyous, but there's a lot in there to make all of us think.
Yeah, there is. And I think, I mean, the songs are great, but I think the message, I guess, is one of many reasons it's been revered over the years, isn't it? Because if anything, it's got more powerful rather than less. So, so thanks for that, Lisa. That was absolutely great. I mean, there was a review that I said it was soul music's Sgt. Pepper's, because there was a view at the time that sort of soul music and rhythm and blues music was more sort of singles orientated, that then became albums through singles, but they didn't make sort of concept albums, if that's the right word for it. And Gaye and one or two others, Curtis Mayfield and Isaac Hayes and others, kind of changed that pretty quickly. And then after that, they were away doing all the blaxploitation stuff and all the really important stuff in the 70s. So, so yeah, it's important in so many levels. But bottom line is the songs are amazing, right? So
yeah, well, I think today, I mean, obviously I know the album, but just listening to it so freshly, it really. And the lyrics, sorry, I'm reading here because my memory is terrible, but when he says, but who really cares? Who's willing to try to save our world? And to save a world that's destined to die. And it just encompasses so much there with what we're facing, the planet, with war. It's quite incredible.
That's incredible. George.
This is a really important record. 1971, some phenomenal records were released in 1971, and in black music, it's a pivotal year because Sly Stone released There's a Riot Going On, and Gil Scott-Heron released Pieces of a Man, and those are two absolute masterpieces. But this is, for me, levels above both of those. You can't touch this. I dip back into this song cycle regularly, and it's the point where Marvin Gaye stopped being a pop star as such and became, not even a spokesman for his generation, but a guy absolutely in tune with himself, possibly for the first time in his life. The death of Tammy Terrell, her brain tumour, and then her subsequent death hit him absolutely like a ton of bricks. And it brought back those suicidal thoughts that he'd had back in the early 60s, where he was a very, very unhappy man. And his brother in Vietnam, and, the financial troubles that he'd had, the breakdown of his marriage, everything seemed to be going wrong. And he actually met Obie Benson from the Four Tops on a golf course, playing golf. So there's your golf link, John.
That's quite surprising.
So all the big things happen on the golf course, George. Right?
Exactly, and I've been a massive.
That's the thing.
I've been a massive critic of the golfers up to this point, but
100 greatest golf albums. What would they be?
This is
100.
Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra, but this, the genesis of this album was a golf course, so we have to give props to the swingers.
Absolutely,
the swingers.
He was looking at you there, John. That was a Denny quote, I think, mate.
I'd say.
That was a
Yeah,
Denny quote.
there's apparently a swingers place in Falkirk, but I wouldn't know.
I go back into this quite a lot. This album, it's one of those
Yeah, me
ones
too.
that I love sharing it with people who think Marvin Gaye's just I heard it through the grapevine, and it takes two and stuff like that. He's so much more than that, and he was a very, very troubled. To quote the title of a track that came a wee bit later, troubled man. He was
Yeah.
a very, very troubled fella, and it's heartbreaking to think that he couldn't quite master his self-doubt. It riddled him, but it didn't affect his, it didn't appear to affect his art, which for me will live forever. I'm a massive Marvin Gaye fan, and this is his pinnacle. And it's one of those when when Lisa was talking about early on about it hits so many prescient topics, but for me it's almost spiritual listening to this, and it drags me away from my more agnostic leanings. With people like Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye, I know there's something there.
Yeah.
It really works for me in that respect. It leaves us on Inner City Blues, which is quite minor and edgy, but this is another worldly record. And it was only, I think, I looked early on, it was the 52nd most popular record by sales, 52nd most popular album of that year.
Wow, didn't know that. Yeah, the single's huge, wasn't it?
I think it was really big.
Kind of made them an album band, but you're right. As back to the chat earlier, they weren't particularly famous for, even Motown weren't particularly famous for albums through the 60s. So they were always sort of seen to be 2-minute pop songs and stuff. So changed so many things, and as I mentioned earlier.
But Norman Whitfield and people like that really helped move things away with the Temptations.
Absolutely.
They were right. He was writing a lot about the social aspect, the upheaval in America at the time, and obviously Stuart Cosgrove's got onto that in the last couple of years with his famous trilogy of books about Black American culture from that era. So it's Marvin Gaye is easily up there with any of the people we've talked about tonight.
Totally agree. And you mentioned the Wrecking Crew earlier on, I think, when we were doing the Beach Boys, George. And one of the other important things that Gaye did was he was the first major Motown singer to credit the Funk Brothers.
Yeah, and
on
without
an album.
the Funk Brothers, there is no Motown.
There's no Motown. No.
Those guys are absolutely pivotal to the sounds. If you like 60s music, if you like Motown music, you have to give major credit to the Funk Brothers.
Julie, do you like Marvin Gaye? What's Going On?
Okay. I feel a bit unqualified to answer.
Okay.
Because full disclosure, it's not an album. I mean, I know the singles, Mercy, Mercy Me, What's Going On, blah, blah. It's not an album I'd ever listen to. It's not, I mean, Marvin Gaye's got a beautiful voice, and I know obviously heard it through the grapevine, as you said, all the kind of famous ones. I know how revered this album is, but it's never intrigued me. It's not really, I mean, I'm going to revisit it after what you have said. It's like, okay, but it's never been one. I mean, I know it's always topping lists and it's always this, but I really struggle to want to connect with it. That's kind of changed after everybody's kind of been raving about it. But I feel kind of like I know the songs. I've heard them. They've not really meant as much to me. I think deservedly it has to be in the top 100. But I don't know if I'd have them at number one, just because personally I've not really listened to this album. It's not really my kind of style, and it's not something that's had a major, I mean, I know Lisa and George and everything have said, how much it's touched them. And that's what's made me want to kind of really listen to it. But I don't know if I'm qualified to give any critique, because with the exception of the well-known singles, I've never really listened to it. And
Okay.
I was very surprised that was number one.
It's a bit
But
like
that's
John.
really because I don't know it. So yes, I feel because he's amazing, or he was amazing, sorry. and obviously the voice and everything. So deservedly, absolutely got to go top 100. But I can't lie, I was quite surprised it was number one. But from hearing how much it's touched Lisa and George, and I really respect their views on music, so I'm sitting going, I'm going to revisit that in my own time and maybe give it another chance. But it's just something, if I'm being completely honest, it's not a style I'm really into. I've never went, I want to hear Marvin Gaye or like bought the CD. I think it's something I'd listen to more now. Definitely top 100, but I don't know if I'm really qualified to talk about the tracks because, to be quite honest, it's not an album I've really listened to.
Okay.
I think if you do
Totally.
listen to it a few times again, I think you may come back with a different. I don't know. Who knows?
Oh yeah, after hearing you and George, that's really spiked my interest in going, do you know what? I think I'd really liked it. I only know the singles, and I kind of was like, I don't even really feel like I just wasn't really into hearing it, and that was partly due to time constraints. But after hearing you and George speak about it, I'm like, yeah, maybe I will take the time. It's just, I'll be absolutely honest, I can't critique the track or the album because I only know the singles, and I feel bad but it was just a bit time constraints. I couldn't listen to all the albums before coming on, but it's never been one where I've went,
You're
oh, I've
the
got to
only
listen
one,
to
Julie. Don't worry.
So my advice, Julie, my advice to you
yeah.
would be, if you're going to listen to it, right, don't listen to it driving from Clydebank to
To
Motherwell
Motherwell.
and back again. Right, it's probably not what he was thinking about. Maybe Inner City Blues would maybe be as close as you get, maybe for one of the tracks, right?
Yeah, and after Georgie's beautiful, tourist board for Largs, I'm never going there again. Yeah.
Oh, from Scotland with Love, of course, King Creosote. That was the cover from Largs, wasn't it?
So yeah, definitely top 100. I agree, but I just feel like I can't give an honest critique because it's not one I've really listened to. However, I know how amazing George, especially, but I know Lisa, how much it's touched you, and that thing you were saying about the children and stuff. So I'm kind of like, I'll go back to this,
Yeah.
but that's purely because of actually the way you've critiqued that, guys. Other
that's
than that, I'll
fine.
be honest, I don't want to just bullshit you and say, oh, it's amazing. Yeah, because that's what all it always tops all the lists. I've never listened to it fully, but I'm definitely going to do that. Yeah, after hearing that tonight, I will.
I mean, George and Lisa have been wrong more than been right, to be fair, over the last year or so. But eventually, like monkeys and typewriters, right? It's going to happen. John, do you want to take us?
I don't mind.
Do you want to take us home, John?
Absolutely. I think George mentioned Stuart Cosgrove, and I think this was the introduction for me to Marvin Gaye. So his books, and we're talking with vaulted people here that have written his 3 books about Detroit, Memphis, and Harlem are all based on what's going on in America at the time. And I'm reading that book, especially Detroit 67, right? I'm reading that and I'm going, right, he's talking about Motown, he's talking about whatever's going on, all this stuff about music. And as I say, the other books, and it's a counterculture scene, but music. So I'm like, right, okay, I'm going to listen to some of these tunes, which ordinarily I wouldn't, and it made the books become alive with the music, and it's a beautiful thing. And this album is not, again, you all know my musical taste, but not an album I would have went to. But I listened to that music because of Stuart Cosgrove and what he was talking about in his books, and it just really hit a chord, whether it's a song, an album, whatever. This is a concept album. A concept, what the fuck is that, right? I'm not into concept albums, pretty much, but this flows.
Yeah.
Absolutely flows, right? And, we talked about Abbey Road and the medley. This is a medley that makes sense to me. Save the Children, I think Lisa mentioned that. I've listened to that about 3 times today and I'm like, fucking hell, that is such a song, right? Amazing song. And right now, No.
Mhm. Yep.
How
Timeless.
many years ago was that?
As George says,
And
more
it
prescient
is
than ever,
still-
right?
Yeah. And I'm like, he's got this written, spoken word bit in it, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking, you know, and I kind of rail against that generally, but I'm listening, I'm going, fucking hell, you're nailing it. And then I think about songs like Michael Jackson, his Earth song, but he's doing all this fucking thing. I'm thinking, step back, you fucking arsehole, and look at Marvin Gaye doing Save the Children.
So
Just you know, and I'm going, Jarvis Cocker.
exactly right.
You should have, it's
United.
Jarvis
bullshit.
would never have
fantastic.
done. He would never have done this to Marvin, would he?
No.
No.
No, absolutely not,
No.
because Marvin's not at the part. Jarvis would be there going, you are amazing,
You're a man.
Michael.
Yeah.
So,
Brilliant.
best
So-
album ever? Maybe. Not mine,
No.
No, I get that. But
but I'm listening, I'm going, what an album.
so it's interesting.
Fantastic. And he played golf to George. The golfers know.
Golfers know, mate. Boom, 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 boom. Right.
One thing before we go on this one is just
Yeah.
the technical side of things was the vocals that I never mentioned earlier on. It's when I was listening to it again today, I listened to it again the way back, and I love, and I never mentioned it earlier on, the way he harmonises with himself.
Mm.
The two
Yeah.
voice thing,
Yeah.
and both voices are very different. Even if he's just doing a straight octave on what he's singing, the two voices, one will be soft, one will be a bit more forceful, and they sort of weave in and out of each other like perfectly. And I've listened to this album so much over the years that I sort of kind of forgot how good a technician he was. And if you get a chance to listen to it again, those who have listened to it, listen to his voice and listen to the technique he's employing when he's singing, the harmonies, the counter harmonies, the octave that he's singing directly below the. So whether it's either the octave or the harmony, it's incredible.
I'm kind of excited now to actually listen to this after hearing the input, where it's maybe something I would have missed or no give it as much time. And actually, from what you've said, and especially that, George, I think I'm going to actually get a lot out of this. I'm kind of excited to listen to it fully for the first time.
He's a guy who had, you know, not the voices in his head, but he had, you know, the fight between the secular and the non-secular in his life. His father was a preacher, and obviously had a very contentious relationship with his father, which ended up finishing his life. But you know that there's that battle between the good and the and the not so good with Marvin, and you sometimes get that in his voice, and you get that in a lot of his music as well, especially the stuff later on. He sort of embraced a little bit of that later on, but there's that battle between the two Marvins, and he was in such a sad, low place when he started this, and it's almost like a rebirth for him. You know, losing Tammy Terrell the year before, Tammy Terrell was at his best. Well, you know, and to lose her to a brain tumour, and
yeah, well, he caught her on stage, didn't you? The first time he collapsed, he was on stage with her. So it doesn't get any more emotional than that.
Go back and look at Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye. There's a promo clip of them singing "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," and it looks the way that love for me should look and feel. And when she was gone, a lot of him was lost. And this album's like him sort of pulling himself back from it. So yeah, I love it.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, mate. So a couple of things just
I'm
to
going to
finish.
listen to that. definitely.
Bring a couple of our guests back in again who have commented. So we mentioned Caroline a couple of times tonight. So Caroline said, what's going on? Absolute yes, exclamation mark. Very much of its time and yet timeless. A masterpiece worthy of the top spot. So that was Caroline. And then David, we name checked Stuart Cosgrove a couple of times. Stuart was actually slated to join us tonight for quite a long time, and of course diaries pre-Christmas, and he's been doing book tours and stuff, and it just never happened, right? But I've had Stuart on podcasts before talking about what's going on. He's an amazing guy. But anyway, David Ross gave us a comment saying, yeah, it's amazing, should be number one. I remember talking to Stuart Cosgrove about this and us pondering whether Marvin Gaye suspected that it was a record that would be considered as a pinnacle of black music 50 or 100 years after it was made. Berry Gordy apparently told him it was terrible. How do you know when you've made a work of art that's great? Would he have had the same doubts after Gordy said that? Again, timeless, human, empathetic, quietly magnificent. One of my favourite LPs. So there's something in there, isn't there? I think there's such a cross-section of people saying it's amazing. And I'm sure, Julie, when you get the time to sit and chill out with it,
Yeah, I'm kind of gutted. I had to do
with
last
some wine,
Christmas shopping, so I couldn't actually
Of
listen
course
to
you
it
do.
today.
Of course you do. That's
But
why.
I just didn't want to do lip service and say something that I've not listened to
Oh, that's all.
fully, and
No.
just say yeah, and like, you know, read a review, and it's not my honest critique. But these are people that know their stuff, and especially about music, and these are people who I admire, and see hearing that there, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go back, and I'm quite excited about actually I'm getting to listen to this for the first time. Really listen to this, and I'm kind of excited having all that input. So yeah,
and enjoy it. You don't need to be thinking about anything, just
no,
immerse yourself in it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah,
will.
trust George, I think, is the take on that, right? Trust George.
Oh.
George knows. Hashtag George knows. Right.
I'll take that. Finally, I know something. It would take me 100 fucking albums, but
We didn't get 100% on Twitter, but we did get 94%. And I actually challenged them as the vote was going through. I challenged would that have been 3 or 4 or 5 voters actually at the end of it who didn't vote for it. And I just said, I love to know why people maybe think differently. That's the whole point of music, isn't it? So, but they
Absolutely.
didn't. So maybe for another day. Julie, you're probably one of them, I guess, were you?
Hey, stop throwing me to the wolves, okay? I was just saying I didn't get time because of the kids. I had to pick up stuff at my head. Wait a wee minute.
So that's us.
Yeah.
That's us.
As I said, I just didn't want to read a review and give someone's interpretation of something that I've not had a chance to listen to, and I wanted to just be totally honest and say I can't critique something I've not fully listened to.
Quite
After
right,
hearing that, do you know what? Yeah, these are people I really respect, especially about music, and I'm like, absolutely, I'm quite excited about hearing this actually. Yeah.
Okay, so
Can you come back on, Julie?
we are going to do some stuff in 2024.
Oh, yeah,
I just don't know what it is yet. So so leave that one with us all, and we'd love to get you back on, Julie. So we've got a final vote to do. So we're 7 out of 8. So I think everyone's okay. Maybe Julie, you're maybe not.
No.
So much.
As I said, look, it's Marvin Gaye. He's not going to be out with the top 100 just because I've not listened to an album. It's Marvin Gaye.
Okay,
absolutely has to be top 100 just because I've not heard the album, but it is Marvin Gaye. Come on, yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And if you do listen, or anyone else listens to it, when they reissued it, I'm trying to tell me that was 2011, 2012 maybe. But there's a live album with it, What's Going On Live, which is from 72, and they basically plays the whole album with the orchestration and stuff like that. But there's also a medley of all of his 60s songs on it, in the style of What's Going On, if that makes sense.
So he's going to rework
it's George, it's wonderful, mate. It's all a bit laid back, all a bit chilled, all about him chatting about stuff, and it's wonderful, mate. If you get a chance, have a go at that.
This is what I love about stuff like this. I mean, just you're still learning stuff, and it's not like just set wee boxes and you interact with people, and you're still sparking stuff about music. I love that. That's what I love. Yeah.
That's the first time we've ever agreed, I think, in a year. So so we're finished. We are finished. So let me see where we go. We've got another 5 to get on. So we're a full house tonight, John. So although you haven't voted for all 5, your podcast has, mate, because it's part of the team you're in, right? So, so that gives. I think it's the second time I think we voted all 5 in out of 20. So so fair dues on that one. So we'll be working that one out at the end, but it's going to give us about 69 out of 100, I think, that we've voted in, which of course will give us 31 gaps to fill, which for another day we'll come back to that. Brilliant, thank you. It's been a bit longer than normal tonight.
Before you continue, we do need Lisa's suggestion. Julie's suggestion.
We do, mate. We
Oh,
do. So
yes.
thank you. I'll pass you back. So we every guest gets a chance to nominate an album, and Julie, you're our last guest of 2024. Does anyone want to guess the album before Julie tells us?
Oh, let me see if somebody can guess this.
I would say Pearl Jam.
Okay. I'm doing
well done.
stoic,
Yeah,
I'm going to say Nirvana.
Never mind.
No, she said earlier it wasn't Nevermind.
Okay, wasn't listening.
I don't know. I am honestly don't. Go on,
Thanks,
Julie.
Lisa.
Tell
I'm used to that. That's
tell
fine.
me what your album is and why.
It was at the start. I was getting myself together.
You're
Go on,
waiting in the
Julie.
Tesco delivery, I know. It is Ritual de lo Habitual by Jane's Addiction.
Wow.
I adore
Because?
this album.
Because?
The second side of this album, I know I keep going on about my second side, but is one of the most perfect things ever. This album really means a lot to me. I was 14 when I came across it. I was reading it around. There's some albums that I have listened to and read books at the same time, and they're forever linked. And I was reading The Trick Is to Keep Breathing by Janice Galloway. At the time I was listening to this, and they are the most completely opposite things you can ever think, and absolutely merged when I was listening to this. I adore this album, everything about it. The only track I hate is Being Caught Stealing, and that was the one that was on MTV, and that was the big one, and I was just like, oh my God, listen to the other album tracks. 3 Days is like this opus, like a 10.5-minute opus. It's just amazing. Of course, is like 8.5 minutes. It's got like Oriental, it's got violins. It's this is one of my albums, and yeah, the cover. Yeah, no, maybe Beach Boys should take note, because the cover is a threesome of papier mâché, Perry Farrell with 2 young girls. So maybe if Brian Wilson had maybe done that, well, maybe not because it's with animals, but maybe not. Anyways, I just adore this album, and I listen to it constantly. I know that Nothing Shocking was their debut, but I think this is Jane's Addiction's nadir. This is just the best album. I adore it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. That's on the list. So we will add that to the other 10 or 11 guest nominations we've had, plus some of the stuff guys on the panel are going to add, and we're going to have some Twitter chat on it as well, and we'll see what we can do with that. Brilliant. So first of all, Julie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I hope it was worth the wait.
It was so good. Thank you for being so patient.
Very welcome. So on behalf of Julie, all the guests, I just want to personally thank them all, because it's so difficult to get guys lined up, and then B, to get their time, and then when their input comes on, it's always brilliant. So thanks for that. George, Lisa, John, I can't thank you enough, guys. Yeah, been great for another day, but it's been a long year, but a really good fun year, and I've learned so much about music and also got to know friends a lot more. So thank you very much for that.
No, it's been our pleasure.
For having
Good.
us.
Brilliant. No, my pleasure, I can assure you. And we will come back again. And myself and John are guaranteed to be nominating the Cramps and Rush albums on the list of things to be filling.
I've lost.
And just kind of one last thank you, I guess, is to all the artists and stuff. So I mean, we've gave the Rolling Stone and a whole bunch of guys a bit of a kicking, and probably some of it with absolute justification. But there's been some amazing albums. I think John said a while ago that we've listened to stuff, and more importantly, voted stuff on that we would never have voted on, ever. And we've absolutely hated other stuff as well, and that's fine. But we've loved some other stuff. So I was going to George. I've just finished off to say, we might not have loved every artist that's been in, but we still loved having you on the list, apart from Metallica, because they are toast, mate.
Yeah, but we did name the podcast after.
We did. We did, and it will stay that until we finish this list at some point next year. So, guys, thank you very much for your time. That was a fantastic idea, really. So one of many.
The only one.
Have an amazing time. Oh, I nearly got John before he went. Guys, have an amazing time. Have a
Merry
brilliant Christmas.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for everything.
Good.
And we'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks again.
Thanks,
Bye now.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.